From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is U.S. Farm Report.
Welcome to U.S. Farm Report this pre-Independence Day weekend. We have the perfect setting for U.S. Farm Report this weekend. These farm fields just outside of Kansas City. And here's what's in store over the next 60 minutes. The big acreage debate gets answers as USDA releases the planted acreage report.
The biggest story, I think, was the decline in soybean acres, a drop of 2.6 million acres.
Plus, did the latest look at grain stocks reveal answers to why cash grain bids have been so strong? The reality of where crops planted across the Midwest actually go.
So a small fraction goes to actual food products such as corn flakes or sweeteners or such, so it's less than 10%.
Over 40% of the corn grown here in Nebraska is utilized through livestock.
We're following feed and debunking a few myths about beef.
Some of the biggest misconceptions of those finished on corn or grain-based diets are those environmental impacts that they could have.
And in John's world,
John Hart, farmer and patriot.
now for the news, did farmers actually plant more soybeans than corn? Well, USDA providing answers to the big acreage debate with a couple major reports on Thursday. Starting with acreage, USDA shows corn and soybean both under 90 million acres in the U.S. U.S. corn planted acres came in at 89.9 million, up slightly from the March survey. Soybean acres fell to 88.3 million. That is down from the 90.9 million in March. Now, all wheat acres dropped to 47.09 million in this latest report. That's from the 47.3 in March. Cotton acres did come in higher than what farmers intended to plant in March, now at 12.47 million acres. USDA did note in the report that it will collect updated acreage information from the states that saw delays due to the wet spring. That includes North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota. And USDA's June grain stocks report typically takes a backseat to acreage released on the same day. But some analysts were watching this year to see if tight corn stocks are leading to the strong cash grain bids in places. Instead, it appears farmers are just holding on to old crop, with corn stocks up 6% from last year overall, and the amount being stored on farm 22% higher than a year ago. Soybean stocks nationwide, those are up 26%, and the amount of soybeans stored on farm is up 51% from June of last year. Wheat is what's seen tighter supplies across the U.S., with all wheat stocks down 22% from June 2021. And money is going out to farmers impacted from wildfires, droughts, hurricanes, derechos, winter storms, and more. USDA Secretary Tom Vilsack announcing that so far, producers have already received more than $4 billion in payments through the Emergency Relief Program. That accounts for about 67% of the more than $6 billion set aside for Phase 1 of the program. Phase 2 will be aimed at filling gaps and providing help to producers who didn't receive payments through existing programs. The money comes from taxpayers thanks to a bill President Biden signed into law last year. The Supreme Court this week ruled to deny RCAF's request to have their lawsuit against the National Beef Checkoff considered by the court. This effectively puts an end to this case, which has been ongoing for nearly 6 years. The premise of the case was that USDA does not have enough oversight on the National Beef Checkoff, but the High Court ruled there was not enough evidence to prove that claim and that the agency is using the checkoff the way it was intended in the National Act and Order.
This ruling was not a surprise because we knew the whole lawsuit process has been nothing but a politically motivated effort by RCAF to once again just try to disparage the checkoff and disparage NCBA. So we've always known that the oversight has been in place. We know that the oversight is robust. We know that these dollars are being used the way they were intended to be used.
Woodall added that RCAF aligned itself with an animal activist group, Public Justice, to gain support for their legal battle, which is tied in with groups like PETA. This is not the end of the story, though, as RCAF has another lawsuit against the beef checkoff that is working its way through the courts. This one claims USDA has violated the Administrative Procedures Act. Well, the sale of more than 2,000 acres of prime North Dakota farmland to a group tied to Bill Gates has stirred emotions. The Gates-linked Red River Trust purchased the farmland from the owners of Campbell Farms, which is located in Pembina County. That's about 50 miles from the Canadian border. Now, North Dakota's state attorney general has asked the trust to explain how it will satisfy the state's anti-corporate farming law. The state's agriculture commissioner is saying public reaction to the purchase has been largely negative. Gates has amassed nearly 270,000 acres of farmland across the country. The Microsoft co-founder is considered the largest private owner of farmland in the country, with acres across the U.S. Well, the cattle market is continuing to tighten up. That's showing up in new cattle on feed numbers from USDA. It reports 11.8 million head as of June 1st. That's 1% above last year, and it's the highest June 1st inventory since 1996. But feedlot placements at 1.87 million head is actually 2% below last year. And among those placements, more lightweight cattle than normal. Well, in Ukraine, farmers are being forced to do something many farmers here in the U.S. would deem unthinkable: destroy their own equipment. They're doing it to prevent the Russian army from confiscating the wheat currently ripening in the fields. In recent days, the Russian army has bombed refineries, seaports, and many other parts of the country's infrastructure. And estimates point to at least 3, maybe 4 of the 7 major export terminals in Ukraine have sustained major damage. The destruction means even if farmers have kept their equipment intact, many are unable to access much needed diesel to fuel the harvest. Well, on this holiday weekend, if you're hosting a 4th of July cookout, prepare to pay more. An American Farm Bureau Federation Market Basket survey says you'll pay just under $70 total for your favorite foods for 10 people. That includes cheeseburgers, pork chops, chicken breasts, homemade potato salad, strawberries, and even ice cream. It breaks down to less than $7 per person, but it's up a total of 17%, or about $10 from last year. The increase is blamed on supply chain disruptions, inflation, as well as the war in Ukraine. All right, that's it for the news. Well, we need to take a quick break. And then with changing of forecast, it seems like that is definitely on the minds of the markets. We'll have a check of your forecast next.
U.S. Farm Report is brought to you by Endzone from Farm Shop MFG, which allows you to rehydrate your soybeans from 10 to 13%. On a 20,000 bushel bin, that's an extra semi-load added to your bottom line. Order your Endzone fan by July 31st and get $200 off.